and provides solutions for a successful Sunday morning service. You ready? It's time to take a ride. Let's go. Yes. Yes. Welcome to another edition of the Church Sound Podcast. I'm your humble host, Mr. Prentiss Thompson. Happy New Year once again. I'm pretty sure you guys enjoyed last week's show, which was great. And today I have a great guest and a friend of the show. I've nicknamed him my virtual mentor because I've watched every video he's ever done in regards to audio and a digital mixing console. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs of all ages, welcome to the guy who has a I could have swore the MD meant medical doctor, or but he calls himself and we call him the Worship MD. Welcome to the show, Mr. Doug Gould.
Thank you, Prentiss. My biggest fan. I'll take you everywhere I go, man. Hey, he thinks
Hey
I'm great.
man. Hey man. Hey, listen, I could be your Flavor Flav anywhere you want to go in the world.
All right, well, that's why I invited you to Wave. I wanted you down there. So,
Oh man, I'm super excited to be there. I had a great discussion with Ron. Super great guy.
yeah, he's
Super
a really good
super
guy. He's got a great heart, and he's
super
doing his
super.
best to. He invests a lot of his own money into these things, and I'm
Wow.
just helping him because I don't want him to lose money.
What are friends for?
Right? Yeah. Come on.
Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, because we have the great Doug Gould, and his whole nucleus is learning, teaching, engaging, educating, empowering churches with their tech staff. And so we're going to talk a little about the learning process and what the learning process leads to change, occurs with the result of experience, and increases the potential of improved performance. And that's kind of what we all do when we arrive at a church, or we talk to a pastor, or we talk to a worship pastor or a musician. Our process is to lead to change that will occur during the experience that we share. So let me ask you a question, because I'm pretty sure you've ran into this question, and I'm gonna run by you.
Okay.
So, what is the most challenging part of the last few years that you've gone through dealing with churches?
Oh my word. Well, I think we've talked about this before. The lockdown killed not only the church, it killed the whole economy. Live concerts went away. Any type of live venue, theater, church, nightclub, bar, all done. I don't know how many live sound companies went under,
Yeah.
selling off their stuff for a dime on the dollar. Bands that had to find other types of occupations because they couldn't play anywhere. And the church was very, very affected by it. I think one thing that maybe was a positive about it, if I can say it was a positive, was that churches learned how to reach out to the community virtually because they couldn't do it in person. So the biggest questions I got during that time were, how do we make our streams sound better?
Hmm.
And it went from 0 to 60 overnight. I remember in
Oh
March
man,
of
zero to
2020,
100.
nobody was asking about streaming too much before then. And then
No.
all of a sudden, I was getting 1,000 phone calls. And I think I told you this before too. 2021, it was still shut down, and I was looking for a church to listen to on Sunday morning because I couldn't find anything that was worth listening to. I couldn't get past the first few minutes because the streams were so bad.
Right.
I said, you know what? I'm just going to advertise locally that I'm going to teach how to do an audio stream and to improve the audio of it every Tuesday night for anybody who wants to come in Mercer County. And I had about 20 churches show up. I charged
Really?
$100 for 4 weeks, and it was 3 hours every Tuesday, and showed them how to improve it. And the first thing was, get out of the room if you can. If you stay in the room, you're not going to be able to create a mix that is going to make somebody at home think that they're in the room. I know that sounds counterintuitive,
Right.
but if you're in the room, you're going to hear the acoustic sound pressure of the guitars and the bass, and it's going to have an effect on your mix. If you look at the faders on the mixer at that point, the drums and guitars are probably down because they're loud in the room. But if
Hmm.
you're in another room, you got to mix them up,
Right.
right?
Right.
So people just don't understand that. And that's the biggest challenge, I would say, with anything when you're teaching a church audio tech about sound, is they don't know the fundamentals in the first place. You know, 85, 90%, maybe not even that much, have never done this
Hmm.
for a living.
That's true.
So,
That's true. That's true. I
and I
found
don't,
I found that I found that that's amazing that that you would think to do that just kind of based on what you were experiencing. A lot of churches would just had no clue about what to do, what to buy, what components, how it worked, how it connected, why it connected, um, why you need to be on separate Wi-Fi, um, all those things that we kind of know just from understanding technology as a whole. So many of the churches were just kind of lost in the sauce and didn't have a north star, if you will.
that's right. Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
everything from just trying to use an iPhone with the internal mic
I saw a lot of that.
and not even on a stand. Somebody's like holding it, and it's
Right.
and you're trying to watch this at home, and you're going like, "What else is on?" I don't usually watch Netflix, but it's got to be better than this, right?
Yes. That's a definite. That's a definite. So when the church calls you, like what are the first signs or first questions that kind of let you know like where they're at? Like what are like the minimum amount of questions or an example of a question?
Well, usually when I'm in a conference or something, people will ultimately come up to me and they'll start drawing their church on a napkin or a piece of paper or something.
Wait a minute. Hold up. What?
Yeah, this is our
Wait a
setup,
minute.
Doug. This is our setup.
No, no.
Here's where the drummer is, and here's where our wedges are. And so they're starting to draw it out for me. And I go, that's all good and everything, but can you just talk to me a little bit here? You know, First thing I want to talk to you about is the room is important. Okay. So before you get into your PA and your band and who's running sound and who's lead worship guy, let's talk about what the room is like. What kind of room is it? Because you're not showing me anything on the napkin about what the materials of the room are.
Right.
Is it a multi-purpose room? Is it a gym? Yeah, we have church and a basketball court. Okay. Are you noticing a lot of flutter?
Yeah, how'd you know? How'd you Oh my God, you're anointed. You're anointed.
So when people teach sound, you know, at least a lot of people I see teaching sound online, is they forget one of the most important components of the system is the room.
Right.
And I don't care what AV integrator you're using. If he comes in and tells you that this new system is going to make everything right and he doesn't address the room,
Right.
then don't buy it from that guy.
Right.
So Prime Acoustic is a great example, a company that I think is great because you can call them up, give them the dimensions of the room, and they'll have solutions that you can put up yourself. If you have handy guys in your church, you can buy these panels and put them up. It's
And they're
easy.
great. And they're great panels because they're
17 to
diffusion and absorption.
25% of the walls need to be covered at least. And but there's people out there who are doing it themselves from the beginning. But the problem is it's not fire rated. So you might be able to build it with 2x4s and put some insulation and some fabric on it. But the once the fire inspector comes and that stuff's gonna just catch fire, man. Take it down. So
Right.
you can save money by putting it up yourself, but buy the materials or the pre-made panels from a
Right.
reputable company like Prime Acoustic, right?
Yeah,
That's where it starts,
it's super important because even if you were staying in bathroom singers are the best example. You
right?
sound so much better in the bathroom. Yeah, because it's reverb and it's
Right,
bouncing all over the room. And but somehow they don't take that common knowledge into a church,
right,
something they experience every day, and don't understand that the room about reflection, about diffusion,
right,
you know, like, where is the speaker?
right. Is it a square room? Are you getting a standing wave between the two walls? Do you know what frequencies those are that are going to create those kind of responses? You have
Hmm.
tangent, you have axial, you have tangential, you have oblique, all kinds of things, ceiling, floor. Some people go the extreme, Prentiss. They put so much padding and stuff in the room that it sounds like your grandmother's clothes closet.
Yeah,
So if you've got like
yeah.
anything traditional at all, like with a choir and organ or that kind of thing,
No
there's not going to be
reflection.
any reflection. So too much reflection is bad. Too
Hmm.
little reflection is bad.
Right, right.
You can't put a rock band in a cathedral, and I don't want to put a choir in a room that's got like carpeting, padded seats, and panels everywhere because I
Hmm.
can't hear the person singing next to me.
Right.
So there's got to be some life to the music, otherwise it's just like an anechoic chamber. Who wants to hear a band in an anechoic chamber where there's no sound reflected anywhere? It's
Hmm.
too. So there's that happy medium, but people don't even discuss the room sometimes until it's too late. They'll build a whole church because it's so beautiful, the glass and the beautiful walls, and
Oh, the glass, the glass.
oh
We
my
know what
goodness.
that means.
So you got to talk about what the room is first before you can do anything. And I'm trying to give some people some resources so that they can talk to the people who do this and have them help them directly because I'm not an acoustician.
Hmm.
That's a special type of training. And a
Yes.
lot of AV integrators who call themselves AV integrators aren't necessarily acousticians either. You got to make sure that the person you're getting to do your retrofit or your new church or whatever knows something about acoustics.
Yes. Because sound travels.
Yeah,
And that because that's what it's meant to do. It has to go somewhere.
right.
Either it's going to have to be absorbed, or it's going to have to be diffused, or it's going to be bounced.
That's right. Unless you have an outdoor church,
Right. Where the sound just travels.
right? And there's a mountain right next to it. So okay, so we'll
Right.
have to deal with that echo later. We'll put padding on the mountain.
Right. We'll wait we'll wait 10 minutes and here it comes.
I think that's the first step. The next step is basically people don't know where to put their loudspeakers. They don't know where to put their mixer. They don't know anything about microphones and applications for microphones. I mean, they don't know anything about signal flow. They don't know about gain staging. What's the difference between gain and volume? They think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Gain is what goes in, volume is what goes out.
Right. Right.
And if I don't get the gain right, your chances of a good mix are going to be about 0%
If you
because
don't
you're
get the
going to get
gain,
too much
yeah,
noise
if you
from the
don't get the
device.
gain right, you're lost.
Right, exactly. So you got to get enough juice in there so you can work with it. And if you don't get enough juice, then you're going to get noise from the components. And then they do stupid things like putting the speakers against the wall. Okay, do you realize that speakers have a horizontal dispersion? So if
Right.
you put it right against the wall, you're only going to get 45 degrees of it out here, and the other 45 is going to be
45.
bouncing along the wall. So get it in the middle of the room as much as you can. And if you have a long room, you want to probably set up some delay speakers. They don't know anything about delay.
Right.
What's the speed of sound? About a
Right.
thousand feet a second, foot a millisecond. So if you got a speaker 40 feet from the mains, delay it by about 40 milliseconds, and it'll sound more natural. It won't go.
Right. Right. No, the funny thing about understanding speakers is that no matter no matter how many speakers you have, if they're not placed right, you're not going to get the true effect of what the speaker can do
Right.
first. You're really not going to understand how much then we can't even talk about power, but
Right.
we talk about just the speaker, because you talk about 90 degrees
Right. Yeah.
and of disbursement. What does that really mean? And then placing it so that, okay, is it hitting the fifth row, the third row?
Right.
Do we need front fills? If so, how many? Do we have them on a separate mix? Do we like how do we detail it? How do we adjust the volume so that it's heard but not heard, more
Right.
felt than heard, so it sounds more natural? I've gone to some churches and the front fills are so loud, they're distracting.
Mm. Yeah. It sounds abnormal. You
Right,
got too much coming from there.
right,
You know, um, everything has to be done in a way that there's no hot spots necessarily. And the front fills, if they're too hot, you're defeating the whole purpose of the rest of the room. The PA is not responding correctly. I think that's another people don't understand what the purpose of a PA is sometimes. It's to
right,
make everybody in the room have an equal response to what's going on in the room, to make it more intelligible,
right,
not so loud that we can't hear each other next to each other, um, but to cover the room. The best way to cover the room is to get the speakers up and aim down at a wider area. You need more amplifier power to do that, but it's going to
hmm,
cover the room better with fewer speakers. If you just got a small church with a couple of speakers on sticks, you can get articulating speaker stands now that raise them up high and they
hmm,
aim down about 5 to 10 degrees, as
yep,
opposed to bouncing off the back wall,
right,
right?
right,
There's other speakers. I think PreSonus is one of the first where you could buy a powered loudspeaker that could be either a main or it could be a wedge. But what was
right,
cool about it was the horn could rotate. So if it was a 60 by 40 as a main speaker and you put it as a wedge, think about that now. It's 60 by 40. Now you put it on its side. Now it's 60 degrees this way and 40
right.
degrees this way,
That way, right,
right? So now I'm not getting this wash all over the stage. But if you didn't want something where you hit the balcony, you could rotate that so the 60 degrees goes up instead of wide. You could
right.
rotate it depending on the application. So when
Yeah, they
people
were the
start
only speaker I
understanding
knew that did
dispersion,
that.
what's that?
Yeah, they were the only speaker I knew that did that.
Yeah, I think there's some other ones now that are doing it because it's such a great idea. I mean, if you're like in a, remember when churches were meeting in movie theaters and they bring in
Yeah,
their own PA and stuff? Well, you could
I was
rotate
one
the
of them.
horn and now you could hit the balcony and the theater was narrow. So I didn't need all this wide dispersion. I needed it high. So you just
Right,
go bloop, and now you got that. And it's not bouncing off the walls either.
right,
So
right.
innovative things like that are really cool. People think that loudspeakers have come as far as they are. That's a really a dumb thought. They're doing so many things with loudspeakers now, with steerable arrays, columns that you can steer like in a cathedral. They don't want to have the aesthetics destroyed, so you can paint these things to match a column. I
Right.
mean, all kinds of things that churches can do now to get better and more intelligible sound and not destroy the aesthetics of their church. Even if it has
That's
a lot
so
of glass or a lot of brick
mhm,
or a lot of hard surfaces,
yeah,
I get speakers now that can just literally just go to the people. They don't touch walls, they don't touch the back wall, they don't touch the ceiling. It's all steered. And
yeah. I think just having the common knowledge of speaker placement, the power of the speaker, and then obviously the installation and understanding not to destroy the emphasis or to
right,
be distracting, if you will.
right,
Um,
yeah,
because I because you can really screw a pastor's brain up by or the professionals by hanging speakers in the wrong place. Where first of all, if it's not effective, then it's really a sore.
yeah,
Um, but you have to have people that kind of understand what needs to happen to move things forward. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes more is better.
Right.
Depending on the space, depending on the placement, depending on where you put it, and then lastly is the operator.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
So after you're dealing with all the components and stuff, and what do we really need to cover the room? How do we treat the room? How do we cover the room? What kind of amplifier power we need? Will we buy powered speakers or will we buy passive speakers? Well, when you buy a passive speaker, you got to match the amplifiers up to what that speaker wants to have, not to underpower it because that can hurt a speaker more than overpowering it. But
I
buying a powered loudspeaker, it's all done for you. All the amplifiers have been matched to the components, and all you have
right,
to do now is run a mic cable to that speaker, a line level
right.
cable, and
Hmm.
you've got. Of course, you need longer AC cords, maybe, but it just takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. And then you need to
Yes,
talk about your mixer, obviously. How many channels are you going to need? I see a lot of churches make this mistake. They buy too few. They buy
oh
a
yeah,
16 channel when they should have bought a 24. They buy a 24 when they should have bought a
about
32. They buy a
32.
32
Yeah,
when they should have bought a 48, et cetera,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. And they never buy enough outputs. They always look at the channel count. I got a 32 channel mixer. Yeah, but you got
right,
four auxes.
right,
And you want six monitor mixes in stereo for your band. You should have
right.
bought
In
something
stereo,
with at least
right,
12 auxes on it, you know?
right, exactly. And that would always, when I worked in sales, and I would do my Q&A with churches, and I would ask them like how many inputs are you using, and they would just, "Oh, so one, two, three," it's like they're counting they're
They got
counting
their
on their
fingers.
fingers on the phone. They're like, one, so
Yeah.
it's
Lucy
Sister
on
Sarah,
guitar.
Lucy, Carol Ann, Pastor. You know, it would just kind of go. I said, okay, so how many singers? Um, 8. Okay, so do you have a drummer? Yes. Do you mic the drums? Is there a mic on the drums? Is there?
Or why would we mic the drums? They're already so loud.
Right. That's the other thing. You get that. And then by the time they finish, you say, all right, so after you go through that, so okay, so you got so how many inputs do you want for you? Do you want like kick snare over 2 overheads? Do you want an individual? You want like 8, 10? Like really? We need that many? No, but we could detail it based on how many inputs you need, what's your budget, blah blah blah. Kind of go through the whole thing. And by the time you end up, they will say, you know what, just give me one for the drums. What? One? No, we need it like minimum 3. Just
Right.
minimum 3. Just if we
One
could
for the
do
piano, one for the drums.
right. And then all the singers, and you get that. And then the other question I would get after they bought the mixer and call back, okay, now we need to get it into the live stream. I'm like, okay, how many auxes are you using out of your mixer? Huh? How many auxes are you using out of your mixer? What? How many auxiliaries? How many auxiliaries are you using out of your mixer? Do we have auxiliaries in our mixer? It was the most bizarre phone calls I would have to deal with. It was like, listen, go look at the mixer. Do you see one, two, three? Oh, those things. No, we don't use so we can use that. Yeah, yeah, you can use that, and it'll sound better. Yeah. So the question will always be, I would ask, is there anyone there that understands audio? And the question would be, well, my son, he be on that TikTok thing, and maybe he know. Nobody knows. Like nobody
Nobody
knows.
knows.
Nobody knows. And that would be the saddest thing because it's not like I could come to you if you were close. If your church was close in New York area when I lived in New York, yeah, definitely I could come visit. And, we can work that out. But if you're in Ohio and I don't have anyone I could call there to really help you, that's not going to rob you.
Right.
You know, churches are stuck like, bare minimum information, and then a guy you talking to over the phone in New York is trying to give you a flashlight.
Yeah. Well, that's why I have a job most of the time. I mean, when it shut down for 2 years, I was pretty much out of work. I think you knew that. So I was writing for Yamaha, doing articles. I was doing a couple webinars here and there, some training here and there. But the conferences, which I was typically doing before 2020, was about 25 to 30 a year, and just dried up.
Wow.
So one thing that you can do online is you can talk about mixers. You can talk about what they're capable of doing because a lot of people don't know what they're capable of doing. They don't know what a matrix does. They don't know
Hmm.
what DCAs do. They don't know how a subgroup is different from a DCA. They don't know about ins and outputs. They don't know that a stereo return, an aux return, could actually be used for another additional pair of channels if they need it,
Right.
like
Right.
for a keyboard or an electronic drum machine. So even if they only have 12 channels, yeah, but you got two returns here. You're not using them for any kind of effects return. So
Hmm.
plug an electronic keyboard into it, and you got another pair of channels there.
Right.
They just don't know.
Right. Right.
And the training online is pretty pathetic when it comes to what is a mixer. I'm not talking about what is a QSC touch mix, what is a wing, what is an X32, what is a Studio Live. I'm talking about
Right.
what is a mixer. What does the mic
Right.
pre do? What does a high pass filter do? How many EQ bands do you have on your channel? Is it three? Are they fixed shelf? Are they parametrics? Or are they semi parametrics? Nobody knows what the
Right.
difference is.
Right.
You're really going to boost your bass fixed EQ at 100 hertz. You're going to boost it. You know what you just did? You boosted from 20 hertz down, up, all the way. Use
Right.
it as a cut. It's not effective as any kind of a boost for anything because it goes all the way down below your subs. It's
Right.
going to hurt something. Same thing with your high EQ. That's a shelf too on like an inexpensive mixer. You might have a mid sweep, you have a
Hmm.
fixed low and a fixed high. So what are you going to use those fixed low and highs for? High pass and low pass, basically.
Right.
That's all they're good for.
Right.
And then you
Right.
got 1K that you can sweep around a little bit
Right.
and maybe
Right.
boost it a little bit, but you can't change the Q on it.
Nope.
So on digital boards, that's like a big deal.
Yeah.
And I also have an RTA on it now.
Yeah.
So
Which is
I have,
which is
like, for
great.
instance, I could have a girl sing her lowest note. She's an alto. My daughter Corinna's an alto. Beautiful voice. I say, honey, sing your lowest note for me. Ooh. Pull up the RTA on her channel, and I see her lowest note. It's around 245 hertz. So guess what I do with my high pass filter? Everything below her lowest note is gone.
It's gone.
And I've got all of her range, but I don't have any of the bass drum or any of the bass kicking around the stage, right?
Right.
Hollow platforms in churches, carpeted, made out of
Mm.
plywood. People are
Mm.
stomping around on that thing. It's coming
Oh
up through your
gosh.
mic stands. Use a high pass filter. What is that? Does
Okay.
that mean I have no highs? No, it means you have no lows.
Lows.
Letting the highs pass, it's cutting the lows. So
Right.
what does a low pass do? It lets the lows pass and it cuts the highs.
Highs. Right. Right.
And before you do
Right.
anything, get your gain and use a high pass. High pass everything. Everything. And if it's just one switch, I don't care. Use it. It's 100 hertz, great. If it's variable, wow,
Right.
I might not even have to touch my EQ if I just use that thing properly.
Yeah, you can get rid of so much mud with a high pass. Um, I remember I discovered it as a young engineer by accident because the button would be at the top of the console, top of the of the channel, and I was like, oh, what's that L thing? You know?
HPF? What does that mean?
Oh, and the guy was singing, I hit it. I was like, oh,
Whoa.
oh,
Especially if you have a guy like eating a mic like this,
yes, and that's exactly what it was.
but But any vocalist should be high pass because there's nothing in the
It's
frequency
nothing
range
down
of a
there.
human voice that's going to get down there, unless you're one of those like Kentucky gospel guys, or like the guy in Take Six. You remember how low his voice was?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the guy from the Temptations, him.
I'd say
Oh, him.
we should probably do some shows, and it doesn't have to be made. This is just something for you to think about. You could take one part of a mixer and do a whole show on just that part.
He could.
How to set gain. What does a
He
high
could.
pass filter do? How do we use
Yes.
EQ? What is a matrix? Why are
Yeah.
you mixing with 12 inputs when you could mix with 4 faders grouped? One for the drums, one for the vocals, one for the. Or 2 groups, band and vocal. I could do a whole show like that.
Oh man. Listen, I've gone to churches and just kind of I said, listen, who sings your lead? You have one lead singer problem? Yeah, this one guy. I said, okay, cool. We're gonna put him on one. Where's the rest of your singers? We're gonna put them on the next one. Okay, where's your band? We're gonna put the band right here. Okay, where's your pastor? We're gonna put your pastor right here. So these are your controls. When you need more singer lead, you give them more. Bring the group down, bring the band up, bring the pastor down. That's all you got to worry about.
Right.
I just simplified your whole world, so now you're not grabbing for every fader because you already should have done that in sound check. You should have done that in sound check,
That's
but you
exactly
just
right, man.
simplified everyone's world.
You've got people who don't really know how to do things in the first place. So the simpler that you can make the operation of something better for them,
Right.
the fewer things that they have to think about. And once they get a system down, tell them not to change it every week. you just you just learned a routine. Keep
Yeah,
that your
dummy proof the
routine now.
mixer. Dummy proof the mixer. I would go to churches and I knew they would go to screw it up. Somewhere somebody was gonna save something. I would put my backup mix way down like in the 300s.
Right.
Like way down. You're not gonna go, no one's going that far. And I show back up and he's like, okay, we don't know what happened. And then I just go, okay, sure, hold on. Let me see what I can do. Scroll down, restore. Oh my God.
Wow, it's a miracle.
It's a
Hallelujah.
miracle. Hallelujah. You're pathetic. I mean, prophetic. I mean, what are those
I just
things?
walk in the shadow of Prentiss and everything is correct.
You know, the crazy thing is like when I was a kid, I remember like going to Sam Mash as a kid and seeing like all the stuff you see in the magazines. And you're able to see like the things you dream about. And this is what I think about conferences, especially the wave conference that I want to talk about. It's it's bringing the gear and the expertise in front of people who read the magazine or watch online or watch YouTube.
Right.
It's giving them a personal experience. Can you speak to that?
Sure. I mean, I don't think, even though we talked about teaching a mixer online, you really can't teach audio online. Just talking about the room, for instance. We're in a room
Right.
teaching audio. We're going to talk about the room that we're in while we're teaching audio, and then maybe move the speakers around to show them what happens to a speaker when you actually do that. How do you do that through computer speakers or through headphones?
Right.
You can't. So, for instance, when I come back, I got to go to Houston this Sunday. I'm doing a thing called Music Houston, and about 200, 250 people, 700 people for the concerts. It's one of these choral reading type of concerts, a lot of choir
Okay.
stuff. So there won't be a lot of text there, but a lot of choir directors there. So I'm going to talk to them about the room and about choir miking, right? As soon as I come back from that, I have one day in between coming back and going to Bath, New York to Family Life Ministries. It's up near Corning, below Rochester. And every time I do an event up there, even though it's in the middle of nowhere in New York State, I'll get 200, 300 people at my seminar.
Really? Wow.
And you know what I'm doing that particular day, January 14th? I've got 3 systems that are just going to be on the floor, not put together. 2 smaller ones with small mixers, a main speaker and a wedge, on each side. And in the middle, bigger speakers with a big analog console and subwoofers. And the cables are all going to be wrapped nicely, microphones, stands, and I'm going to have people set stuff up from
Mm.
start to finish. Once the system's set up and the mics are set up, I got some musicians. We're going to mic up a kit. We're going to do gain staging. We're going to EQ it. We're going to mix it. And everybody is going to either get their hands involved in it or they're going to be able to observe what's going on. I'm going to make them
Mm.
get their hands dirty. And then we're going to tear it apart and wrap up the cables the right way. So the next time somebody has to set it up, it's going to be easier to unwind a lot of knots. I'm still
Right.
doing some presentations on, different types of microphones and the team, the relationships of a team. So there'll be presentation, but there'll also be hands-on. And I think that's the first time I've done. I did mix labs for PreSonus, but they're basically about the mixer. They weren't about the whole system.
Right.
And I've got right now 145 people registered with a week to go.
Oh wow.
So you can't talk about parallel compression to that crowd.
Oh no.
Well, I had one guy say, "Doug, isn't that kind of too basic for this crowd to do that?" I said, "No, because they don't understand signal flow in the first place.
Oh,
When we
not a
talk
clue.
about gain and volume, they don't even understand why I have to preamp the microphone. They think they either
Oh,
mix with that or they just set it willy-nilly and use the faders for everything. So we're going to talk about that. You can't get a good mix unless you do this stuff first. And unless you know where it's coming from, you're not going to be able to know what a bus does. How do I get this input to that speaker over there? Signal flow,
right.
routing,
Yeah.
busing.
Routing. Right.
Um, so doing it with a simple mixer, not a digital mixer, because everybody's digital mixer is so different. So we're just going to explain what a mixer is, and then whatever mixer you have at home, all these things apply. The fader is a
Right.
fader, the preamp is a preamp, high pass filter
Right.
is a high pass filter, a
Right.
subgroup is a subgroup. Where
Right.
is it on your mixer?
Application.
That's what you have to figure out.
Application.
But it's,
Application.
but it's there.
That's pretty much what it's all about. Once you understand with the basics like that travels.
Yeah, and then it's just practice after that. It's the problem. The other big problem with the church is because they're not vocational, they don't do this every day or even 4 or 5 days a week like pros do. When's the next time you're going to mix? 3 weeks
Sunday.
from now? What have you been doing in the 3 weeks from the last time you mixed to the time you mix next? How are you practicing?
Right.
What do you suggest, Prentiss? What would they do at home that can make them a better sound person?
Listen to music.
Yep, that's it.
That's the first thing.
That's it. That's the best thing you can do. Turn the TV off, get yourself some nice headphones or nice little pair of monitors, and play music through them and listen to them for as long as you can every day. And the more that you do that, the more you'll understand what a good mix probably sounds like, unless you're listening to really crappy music.
Right.
Um, listen to
Right.
different styles. Listen to classical. Listen to some gospel. Listen to some hip hop.
Hmm.
Listen to some
Right.
metal. Listen to some jazz. Keith Jarrett playing Over the Rainbow. I mean, Herbie
Right.
Hancock. I mean, listen to
Right.
stuff and get
Right.
yourself a grasp of what different types of an upright bass shouldn't be mixed like a Fender Precision bass. It should
Ah,
sound like an
two
acoustic.
different things. Two different things totally. But people, if you just see bass,
Yep.
you have no knowledge of upright 4 string, 5 string, 6 string
Yeah.
keyboard bass.
So that goes back
Whatever you.
to the person playing it. I'm reading this book right now. If you haven't read it, it's an unbelievable book. How to Mic Drums by Bill Gibson. He interviews Al Schmidt, Elliot Shiner, Frank Filippetti, Chuck Ainley, like all the top
Oh
engineers,
wow.
guys who did Steely Dan, James, everybody. And you know what the common thread is? They all have their individual ways of miking a drum set. But they say, you know what it really comes down to? The drummer. When you have a good
Yeah.
drummer, Doesn't really matter what I'm using for mic.
That's so true. That's so true.
When you have a church drummer who only knows 120 dB and he's playing the ride cymbal louder than his snare drum,
Right.
and then the church does the most idiotic thing of buying plexiglass to put it in front of it.
Oh gosh.
And now you got all
I
these
see,
reflections coming back
if I
into
see
the
that
microphone.
one more
It's
time,
like the
one
word.
more time.
So get the guy some drum lessons, man.
Or get a new drummer.
Forget the tube overhead. Get him some lessons.
That's the truth. Because it's nothing best nothing better than sitting on a console and the drummer sits down you're getting set up and you hear him warming up, you go like, ooh, oh yeah, we're gonna have fun today because
As
he can
opposed
play.
to
As opposed to, oh
when you
my
hear a drummer
gosh.
with skill sit down and play,
Yes,
you go,
exactly.
oh, I don't have to
Yes.
do much today.
No. So I'm gonna make sure. Oh man, this is gonna be cake. This is gonna be cake because I can build everything around you.
It's like a good band that's tight, right? It's like if
Yeah.
they're tight and rehearsed, which is not your typical worship band
Right.
because they practice Wednesday night for 2 hours every 3 weeks.
Right. If that, because they
Well,
do the same
that's a
song.
fight the whole time.
Yeah.
Whereas the band who comes in and knows what they're doing, they're sitting out, they're listening, they're not just playing. They know their spot. When it's not their spot, they're laying back. You got a worship band, it's like constantly, all the time
Oh,
playing.
time.
How do you mute a guitar in the room? It's got a Vox AC30 and it's aimed to the pastor's wife,
Right.
and you're telling him it's too loud, and he turns it up on you.
Yeah.
He's completely out of the mix, and he's louder than the PA.
Oh,
What do you do?
so
What do you do,
so
Prentiss?
common.
What do you do with that guy?
What do? I walk up to him and I try to negotiate. I try to negotiate because without without me bringing him down, it's going to destroy everything we're all trying to build. So we have to have a conversation,
Right,
a polite, stern conversation about, listen, let's negotiate, find some common ground here so that we as a unit, including me, including the singers, including the band, including all the techs, that we can come up with a sound that's going to resonate to the parishioners.
right.
That's it.
So let's back up
Our
a
job
step.
is to
How
get
do you
people
have
to
a
die.
conversation with a guy like that if you don't have a relationship with him?
You have to build a relationship. You have to build a
So
relationship.
that
Like
that's the
any church I go to
prerequisite,
the mix, that's the first thing I do. First thing I do is go talk to the band. I go talk to the band. First church I ever, if I've never mixed there before, or even if I've mixed there 100 times,
right?
I still go talk to the band. I go down there. Hey, how you doing? Hey, what's up? How you doing, man? Oh man, I love, like, oh man, nice shoes. I build a rapport because I'm gonna need to talk to you, good or for bad,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I have to build a bridge. So I work on building bridges
See,
for
that's the
everybody.
key, and that's another thing you can't teach online. So you remember when I said we're laying out all the components of the PA system, including who? The band and their instruments, right? So they're going to be able to see how we talk to each other.
Right,
And I have a relationship with these folks. So it should be very conversational. No judgmental stuff going on. Nobody's calling anybody a diva. Nobody's calling the sound man a jerk. Everybody's like on the same page for one purpose. We're disciples of Christ. We're trying to bring glory to Him. What can we do together to make this work?
right,
And if you
right.
don't have that, which a lot of churches don't, I'm sorry to say. Hey, you back there, can you turn up Fader 3? Don't even know his name.
Oh yeah.
Don't know his name. And he ain't going to say his name because he's
Mm,
upset now. I don't get any respect here. I don't get any praise. I don't get any
mm,
credit, any glory.
mm.
It just becomes all this stuff that is so
Right,
unimportant.
right,
I care more
right.
about people than I do about the production, believe me. And I want people to observe, which I can't do by teaching an audio course online or reading in a book, how to
Right.
build relationships with my team. I want them to be Christ followers. I don't care if they're a good sound man or a great guitar player.
Right.
I don't.
Right. 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 So I'm excited because I'm going to be able to see you in a few weeks.
We're going to hang out together.
Yeah.
I want you to really come in and co-teach with me, man. You got a lot of stuff to bring to the party, and I want to hear about it. And so do they. I don't know how many people we'll have, but we have all day. It won't be like I'm doing in Bath, New York. I won't have all the equipment there. So I'll have to do some, we'll just have to figure out, improvise, you know.
Okay.
And
I'm down for that. I know how to dance.
yeah, I know you do. Dance better than I do.
So before we get out of here, we're going to do my famous game, 30 seconds and gone. True, false, yes, no questions. I hope you're ready, sir. I hope you're ready.
I'm not ready.
Okay, question number 1. Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, or Coke?
Neither one. I'm a Snapple, sugar-free, I have peach iced tea guy.
Okay, great answer. Favorite book in the Bible?
Favorite book in the Bible? Romans.
Romans. Okay, which describes your childhood the best? Baseball cards, football cards, or playing cards?
Baseball cards on the spokes of my bike.
Favorite meal as a kid?
Favorite meal as a kid? Hot dogs with home fries and beans.
Oh, that's good. Pork and beans. You can't go wrong with that.
It's a great meal, man.
You can't go wrong with that. Last question. Do you remember the name of your second grade teacher?
Yeah, I do. Mrs. Klotz.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the guy remembers his second grade teacher. My second grade teacher name was Mrs. Nicholas.
Wow.
I'd never forget her as long as I live. She was the most
great.
impactful person in my life.
Where did you go to school?
As a teacher. I went to school in Harlem, PS 123.
Wow.
She was the nicest. She was the most impactful person. I wish I could find her.
Have you tried to look her up on Facebook?
I've tried, but I just don't remember her first name. I just it's Miss Nicholas. She was just, she was the most encouraging person I met as a kid. My favorite, like my fifth grade teacher, Mr. Silverman. Those two of my favorite teachers as kids.
Teachers can make or break a kid, I'll tell you.
Yes, sir. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs of age. I want to thank my good friend of the show, the Worship MD, Doug Gould.
Thanks, Prentiss.
And I will see you in a few weeks.
Yeah, thanks, man. Can't wait to see you. Take you out.
Hey,
have a Snapple iced tea with you.
Have a Snapple. Hey, I'm with that. I'm totally with that. So there you have it. Say like we always say, keep God first in everything you do, and we will see you next time on the Church Sound Podcast.